Today, you're going to be talking to me and just me. And I want to encourage you all as we continue to go through the show to please keep an open dialogue going with me. I'm going to be checking my feed throughout the show. I want you to feel free as we talk about this, as we discuss this topic this morning. Feel free to give your input, to ask questions, to voice any concerns, because today we are talking about something that every single person in their life is going to face at some time or the other, and that's darkness. And you know, darkness is a very broad term, and it can mean so many things, but I'm going to give you an update on my progress and how I've been doing with my dark period in life. And you know, good morning, Odette. I see you tuned in. That's my girl right away. But I'm going to be giving you an update and sharing a bit more. I know I've not spoken about how I've been doing with my journey, dealing with the anxiety and the depression that so many of you knew that I had, you know, come out to the public with and really been open and transparent about. So I'm going to just share with you today some of what's going on with me. And I'm going to also share some stuff that I feel like we need to go over again, because, you know, in life, James tells us that there will be trials and tribulations. So we are not going to live a life of peaches and cream, or life is not going to always be a bed of roses. And we hear these cliches all the time. But I don't think we realize that, you know, there is a lot of truth in them. And when we are going through those dark periods in our life, how do we get through them? How do we get out of them? How do we actually cope when we are in them? And these are some of the things that I just want to share. This morning, I'm not going to lie to you. This show is going to be about to encourage you, but just as much about encouraging me as well, because I continue to, you know, go through, and life is not easy. You know, we look at each other, and we always tend to look on the outside and draw our analysis from there. But truly, looking at that aspect of it can be so deceiving, because it's, for the most part, dressing up is kind of the, you know, that's the easy part. It's having that true peace and contentment and fulfillment inside the heart. It's really the heart that makes the big difference. And that's why I'm just going to totally open up to you today. Most of you know I've been opening up already. I've been open about what I've been open about what I've been going through, and I'm going to continue with that today. And I want to start it off by telling you what the title of the show is, and that is that darkness is not forever. And I am telling that to you who are watching me now as much as I'm telling that to myself. Darkness is not forever. Darkness is not forever. So whatever dark place you may find yourself in this morning, remember that it is not forever. And before I continue, I just want to say a shout out and a thank you to my partner today, and that is Richie's Calypso and Simply the Best. Richie's has been faithful in believing in what we're doing and believing in us imparting this information, bringing more awareness to our mental and emotional well-being. And for that reason, they have really stuck with us. So we want to invite you to go and visit Richie's downtown. They've been in business, been in the community of Freeport for over 40 years. They have shoes sizes that start from infant straight up to that basketball player size 15. So listen, support your local business. You know, they have stuck with Freeport through the thick and thin, so I just want to say a big thank you to Rhonda and her crew down there at Richie's Calypso. And also I want to say a great thank you again to Simply the Best, my husband, our audio visual company. He is always supportive of everything that I do in more ways than one. You know, but if it were not for him, I would not be able to come to you the way I am. I would not be able to do the live feed. I would not be able to for you to hear me as clearly. All the mechanics that go into producing the show, he has really taken that on his shoulders because, again, he believes in what we're doing. So big thank you to them. So now I am going to just share a bit. And one of the things I want to share with you this morning is that this week for me, and for those who may be watching for the first time, let me just give you a quick recap. I'm Krishna Bo, and for the last 2.5, almost 3 years, I have been going through what has been one of the darkest periods in my life. And that is, I have been dealing with and just overcoming depression and anxiety, which I have experienced so much during the last 2.5 to 3 years. And it has been a terrifying and a horrifying experience for me. That's the only way that I can put it, because I don't want to, I want to be totally transparent with you all, and that is what has been going on. And it is one of the reasons that this show was actually birthed. For many of you, you know that I would have, prior to this, I would have been an author. And I've always had a heartbeat for, us women living a life of fulfillment and just living a life of true peace and contentment. It seems so simple, but yet there's so many of us that strive for this and never ever attain this in life. So it's always been my goal, and I felt like the Lord had placed it on my heart to just try and encourage and inspire and uplift others to try and live your best life, because we only get one chance here on earth, and you don't want to live a life of regret. You don't want to live a life of torment. You don't want to live a life of unhappiness. And that's one of the reasons that I have always endeavored to really just share what's going on with me, because in sharing, I realized, good morning, Bridget, good morning, Nora, I realized that so many people on this island and beyond do suffer through mental challenges, do suffer through emotional crises, do suffer through very, very dark periods in their life. And what we do is we suffer in silence. We're afraid to talk about a lot of the mental challenges that we face because our community is not receptive. You're easily shunned, or you're easily told that you're crazy, or all sorts of different labels. So I have found that in sharing my story and being open about it, it has allowed others to realize that they are not alone in this journey, and that they are not crazy, but for whatever reason, they are experiencing a very dark period in their life. Now, you may say, what is darkness? And I just like the word darkness because, to me, darkness sounds dark. And when you think of darkness, you don't think of anything good. And I would say darkness for all of us can mean very, very different things. Darkness may be going through what I'm going through. Dealing with and learning to overcome depression and anxiety. Darkness may be a crisis in your family. You may just have lost a loved one that you deeply care about. Darkness may be a mental diagnosis. You may just have received some very discouraging news about an illness or a cancer diagnosis. Darkness may be a heartbreak. You could have just come out of a relationship and you could have lost someone, maybe not physically, but emotionally. Darkness may mean divorce. Darkness can mean so many different things, but generally speaking, darkness is a period in our life where we really don't see much light, where everything seems dark. It almost appears as if a cloud is just following you everywhere you go. And that is how I would define darkness. And I'm just going to share with you that this week was, for me, a very, very rough week. I have had my ups with this journey of depression and anxiety, and I've had my downs. And it has really this week taken a toll on me. And I just wanted to just speak from the heart, because I know that there are many of you out there, and it may not be the same thing, or it may not be for the same reason, but you are yourself experience some type of darkness. And I just want to encourage you, as I'm encouraging myself, it is not forever. It is not forever. And we just got to push through. We just got to keep pushing. We can't give up. We got to know that it is not forever. Ecclesiastes tells us there is a season for everything. And guess what? That applies to the good, and that applies to the bad. So, if you're going through a dark period in your life, it's not going to be forever. So one of the things that I want to bring to the forefront as we continue to go through this is, if you're going through a dark period, acknowledge it. It reminds me, and it sounds crazy, but a lot of us, we do not acknowledge when we are not mentally well. We do not acknowledge when we are not emotionally well. And that causes our problems sometimes to be even bigger. Because the reality of it is, we are not made to be alone. And that is not something that we had a choice in. God, our Creator and our Father, He created us to be around people. So one of the first areas I feel personally, and these are my personal views, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I am just someone who has experienced something, and through that process is learning how to cope. And one of the major things I find is we do not acknowledge what we're going through, because of several different reasons. You don't want to say that you're anxious, you don't want to say that you feel depressed, be it because you feel like somebody's going to look at you different, or you don't want to be a burden to somebody, or you just want everybody to think you have it together. Whatever the reason may be, people, just admit what's going on with you and be proactive. And I say be proactive because a lot of times we are reactive. And it's no different when we're going through a mental crisis, or when we're having an emotionally hard time. We are not proactive. We are reactive. We kind of allow things to continue to go, slip it under the rug, and we just kind of hope that it just goes away. And I'm here to tell you that that doesn't work. Why do I know that doesn't work? Because I tried it. It didn't work for me. It's not going to work for you. What it actually did for me is it made my situation truly a lot worse, because had I really acknowledged that I was in a dark period and that I was starting to feel a bit depressed and was experiencing a lot of fear in my mind, had I really been honest with myself and really addressed the problem, I do not think that for me, it would have spiraled into what became at some point an uncontrollable situation. So that's why I encourage you not to walk that road. If you feel like you're experiencing something mentally, it's something foreign, you don't feel right, your mind is not at ease, you're experiencing a lot of fear, you feel like you're losing it, whatever it is you're experiencing, I encourage you to be proactive about it. So, I just wanted to put that out there because, emotional torment is real. And a lot of times, because we don't say anything with our mouth, the fact is we have a lot of stuff going through our minds, and we have a lot of stuff going through our heads, and it can bring torment to our lives. We put on a good face, we see each other. Hello, Aretha, good morning to you as well. Good morning, Mom. Good morning, Tasha. Please share this video. I'm just speaking from the heart, but I know that just knowing life, that so many of us are going through a dark period right now for whatever reason. So this is just a show to talk about that. Feel free to throw any questions my way, or even to, make personal comments. I have no problem with that. But after admitting that you're going through a dark period, my next step would be to seek God. Because truly, God has been my anchor through this period. I mean, there are several other things that I have used His wisdom to guide me along with, but truly, He has been my anchor. And for those of us that are His children and that have accepted Him into our lives, seek God. Seek His word. There are scriptures that speak to fear. There are scriptures that speak to turmoil. And we're not alone in this, people. There are so many people, even in the Bible, that went through very, very hard times in their lives. We always look at Job, and we look at Job as a role model. But Job was very, Job went through a long period of depression. Job went through, a long period of, Job wanted to die. Job wanted the Lord to take his life, and then we have David. He had his times of turmoil, there are many times that he asked the Lord, it seems as if my enemy is getting the better of me. And then we had, Elijah. He was afraid of death, and he was so afraid that he ran away, So I know sometimes we use a lot of the men and women in the Bible to talk about the good things, but sometimes we don't look at them realistically enough. And I'm saying that because, hey, Jessica's a warrior. Jessica's tuning in. Great to see you on the feed, Jess. You're doing so well, and Jessica is, I can say it because she's been very open about her battle right now, and she's a survivor, and she's kicking cancer's butt, so woohoo! Happy to have you here. But I was talking again, I get back to talking about the scriptures and realizing that because you're going through a dark period in your life, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean even that you're faithless. It doesn't mean that even that you may have done something wrong, because I have found, being a believer myself, and this is unfortunately not a positive, but it's a reality. I have found that as believers, when we do experience mental crises or emotional fallouts or whatever it is that we're going through because of something in our life, a lot of times we can be ridiculed, or we can be condemned, or we can be criticized for our behavior by other Christians, because they'll say, well, a Christian shouldn't be depressed. A Christian shouldn't have anxiety. Anything mental, anything emotional, if you're going through a dark period, you should be able to get through it. You should be able to go to the Bible, say a prayer, and get up off your knees and be okay. And the reality of it is, that's just not the way it always is. And it doesn't make you any less of a person. It doesn't make you any less of a Christian if that is what you experience. And that's why I started to draw the illustration to all the different men in the Bible. The men and women in the Bible, they were not perfect. A lot of them, they went through periods. David, oh my goodness, I think David was bipolar. Personally, because one minute David is praising God and thanking him and just totally just dancing and happy, and the next minute David is asking God, where are you, God? And he's speaking about his depression and his sweat. And if you read the Psalms, you will find that David is going through all kinds of different emotions. And if David lived in our society today, I dare say he would be diagnosed with bipolar. But David was a man after God's own heart. And in the end, David was still victorious. And that's the point that I want to bring home to us this morning. Do not get discouraged. Your darkness, whatever your darkness is not forever. And you are not a weak person. You are not less than, because you're going through that period in your life. We have, like I said before, Elijah. Listen, sometimes you're going through something and you're fearful. Anxiety is fear. That's pretty much what anxiety is. And sometimes we're going through something and the fear grips us, the terror grips us. And we feel, oh my God, I shouldn't feel fearful if my trust and faith is in the Lord. And yes, that is true to a certain degree, but look at Elijah. Elijah picked up and he ran like a bat out of hell, because he was afraid of that one woman, Jezebel. He ran. He was afraid. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. The Lord had to eventually bring that to him. And I only said it to say he was in a state of depression. His was very brief, but again, these are persons in the Bible who experience hardship. We had Solomon, the wisest man in the world. Again, he had his downfalls. So I just want you to know that you are not any less than, because you may be going through a period of darkness. And I want you to realize that you are not condemned, because even as a believer, and this hits home for me, because I have dealt with the anxiety. I have dealt with depression. I am dealing with anxiety right now. And one of my struggles that I will share is that I have felt condemned because, I thought, Krishna, why when I sit and I read Philippians 4 that says, do not be anxious for anything, but in everything in prayer and supplication, why is it that I cannot come away from that feeling that peace? Why is it that I'm struggling? And there have been believers and persons in my life. Odette is right with her point too. Odette being a singer on the field, that there's not only older people, but there are younger people. And this shows no respect of persons. When I said that we know that a young person can experience mental challenges, a middle-aged person can, an old person can, and right now I have persons in my life, what did Odette say? Adults can ignore young persons when they say they feel depressed or are suffering from anxiety. And that is so true. And I'm glad that Odette say that, because for most of you, she say, I can definitely say I have my dark times and depression. And I'm glad that Odette said that, because I know on the field you don't know each other, but Odette is actually a very beautiful young lady that lives in Nassau. And I know Odette well, and she's a very, very positive young woman. So I only say that to say, thank you, Odette, for sharing. And I say that to say to parents, to friends, do not ignore or do not be cavalier about a young person coming to you and saying that they are going through a depression or they're having a dark time, because a lot of times depression, anxiety, these things don't make sense to the average person. So, you may say with a young person, and I'm tabling that because Odette put that on the feed. You may say with a young person, or you may say, to your daughter, you don't have anything to worry about, you don't have any bills, you don't have blah, 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 blah. Listen, people, it's not about that. Depression, anxiety, that is not about having, quote, a bad day. It's not being stressed out about a particular situation. It's not, I'm just in the slums today. That is very, very different from actually going through a depression. And, Odette is saying, please put that back, Cliff, because I just saw something real quick. Odette said it's a scary feeling. I think she just said she's had thoughts of suicide. And listen, that is serious, people, and that is real. And a person who is going through a depression or a very dark time, suicidal thoughts, Cliff, can I get the comments up? Suicidal thoughts are real. And that's why I said earlier in the show, if you are experiencing these things, or if, okay, what did Odette say? It's a scary feeling. I've had suicidal thoughts many times. Odette, in the name of Jesus, I'm rebuking that. And I'm telling you that you need to do, baby girl, what you have to do to ensure that you get well. And I say that because a lot of times, again, I hate, and I am not bashing the church, I'm not bashing the believers, because I am a believer. My trust and my faith stands in God. But as believers, sometimes a person comes and they're going through something, and you give them a little pat on the back and you say, hey, it's going to be okay. Just trust God. And then you leave them. And it reminds me of the passage in the Bible. Yes, Ava's on another young person. This is so real. Yes, and we have to be aware of this, a person comes to you and you pat them on the back and you say, well, just pray about it. Put it at God's feet. And it sounds good and it sounds holy and it sounds righteous, but they need more than that from you. And that's just not enough if a person is really going through a real heavy depression. That's just not enough. You need to be more proactive in helping that person, or if it's you that's experiencing it, you need to be more proactive in helping yourself. And one of the things that you can start by doing is what we're doing now. Talking about it. Do not ignore it. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not less of a person. Do not ignore it. Talk about it. Bring awareness to it. Find somebody. Search for somebody, and do not, I have Janelle on. Love that you talk about this. I have had both depression and anxiety for years now. hormones, stress, and alcohol play a huge part of it. I do stress and anxiety maintenance every day. I think it's important to talk to youth about drinking and anxiety, depression. Listen, she can't be more right. And this is why I'm talking about it, because this is a real thing. And the drinking, like Janelle said, and I want to thank you for opening up about that, Janelle, because, you know, it's not easy just laying ourselves out there, you know, but it is so true. And we do find that a lot of people, to just numb themselves or to just not feel that, oh Lord, depression, anxiety is so horrible, to just not feel that, we use coping mechanisms. And a lot of times it can be the incorrect coping mechanisms. And one of the incorrect coping mechanisms, like Janelle said, can be drinking. And it's true, you know, because you see people and some of them, they just don't ever get past it. You see people walking on the streets, and, you know, I told my husband, I will never, after experiencing this and going through this in the last 2-3 years, I will never ever look at a person walking the streets of Grand Bahama and turn my nose down at them, because I realized how close I was to being in that position. You know, when you are suffering mentally, you know, there is that point where you can really get to a point of no return. And when that happens, you can be overtaken by so many things, and drinking is one of them. Sometimes people use the drinking as an escape, and with it becomes now another problem. So now you become addicted to the alcohol, because the alcohol becomes the go-to. It becomes your respite, your escape from the darkness. So that's why it's important that we try to share information. You know, Ava Barr is saying exactly. It's important to meet people where they are at and create outlets and a refuge for persons to come and seek wise counsel. Be encouraged, Krishna. Oh, I lost the rest of the comment. But yes, Ava, you know, that is so true. And that's why I'm saying this to you today, because, listen, I ain't gonna lie, this week, people, this week has been rough for me. It has been really rough. The anxiety was so great that I was just in such a bad state the last 2 days. But, you know, I have learned that I have to be proactive. And that's why I'm encouraging those of you who are listening that, you know, that be proactive about your condition. Learn to face it. Don't be ashamed. Don't let the church, don't let people who are ignorant, because this is another thing that if you're going through that dark period, this is another thing I wanted to mention. You have to be so careful of what your ears hear. There are people, and many people do not understand mental illnesses. They do not understand when you're in an emotional crisis. They do not understand anxiety. They do not understand depression, because these things don't make sense. And in the human realm, we need things to add up. But when it comes to these things, they just, a lot of times, they don't add up. Because, listen, people think, okay, just snap out of it. Or they think, oh, you know, you've been grieving long enough. You need to just get over that now. Or the Christians will say to you, you know, you're not trusting God enough. There will be so many comments that will be thrown at you that can sink you even deeper into the pit. You have to be so careful who you listen to, you know, because Aretha's saying here too, Odette, to rebuke the suicide. And Odette, I'm telling you to do it. I want you to remember, Odette, above all things, that, listen, God has a plan for you. And this is why this is one of the things I'm encouraging you to do. Seeking God, reading His Word, praying, they are very powerful weapons to use in this situation, but they are not the only weapons. And I want to draw that home, because mental illnesses are very complex. Each individual person's situation is very complex. What you may need in exactly the way you need it may not be the way I need it. But Odette, I am going to encourage you to read what you need as far as the Bible goes, because Jeremiah 29:11 is going to tell you that suicide is not in the cards for you, that no matter how you feel, God has a plan for you, and it's not a bad plan. 29:11 say that the plans for you are good, and you need to continue to remind yourself of that. Suicidal thoughts are just the enemy. He wants you to go that route because he knows what a beautiful person you are and just what a contribution and a purpose God has for your life. So I'm going to encourage you, Odette, to dig into that word and dig into the scriptures that speak to how much God cares for you and how much God loves you. I mean, there is much more to do, but I'm just giving you that as a start, and I'm just putting that out there, and Janelle, you did say that you've been dealing with it, and it would be good if you're still on the feed. I'd appreciate you. You say you deal with it, you maintain it every day. Stress and anxiety maintenance every day. So give us some thoughts on how exactly do you do that, because one of the things about this show that I endeavor to do, there's a lot of quote talk shows around, and there's a lot of things to discuss, a lot of surface stuff. And, sometimes we do our little things too, but when we're talking about the wellness, the emotional wellness and the inside of a person, which is the most important part of any individual, I want us to be practical, because I think we have become too surface in the way we deal with people who are going through. You say your little words, I'm praying for you, and don't get me wrong. That is a good thing. Prayer is powerful. The word tells us the prayers of the righteous availeth much. Do not get me wrong at all. However, we need to also ask God for wisdom. It's like the man coming to you as a believer, and he's saying, I'm hungry. And you pat him on the shoulder. The Bible says is you pat him on the shoulder, and then you tell him, go in peace, my brother. What did you do? You said something nice to him, but there was no action behind what you did. If you really cared for him and really wanted to help him, you got to do a little something more than just tell him you can pray for him. What about come and tell him, brother, come in, let me give you a meal. And this is the same, I'm using that as an illustration as it relates to this. Someone going through depression, going through anxiety, if you truly care about that person, you have to just give them more than, I'm just going to keep you in prayer. Educate yourself about the subject. See what it's really all about. See some of the things that you can do to help, Odette is saying, I'm going down the feed now. Also, they say they have found more black teens and adults committing suicide because of depression. Yes, and Odette, I think you're onto something with that, because one of the reasons that I started to speak openly about my journey is because, listen, black folk don't believe in psychologists. Black folk don't believe in therapists. And you'll hear it all the time. It's kind of like a joke in the community. And it's not only Bahamian folk. It seems to be black folk, period, worldwide. They just do not believe in mental illnesses. And they just treat it very cavalier. And they say, no, I'm a black folk. I don't go to no therapist. No, we don't do that. And you will hear that comment made very, very frequently. And it's the same thing with Bahamians. We don't believe in addressing mental issues, even though people have it. We would be quicker to just kind of toss it aside. Oh, that person is crazy. No, the person isn't crazy. The person is going through something and they need help. Because, Lord, in this world we live in, all of us at different points in our lives are going to need help. No man is an island. God didn't create us to be an island. And I always say this to people. If somebody came, okay, we have Jessica on the feed, right? Jessica has cancer, and I can speak about it openly because she's been sharing openly, and I think it's such an inspiration. Okay, you're going to tell the person, okay, just go and pray about that. And you just have faith and you're going to be okay. The first thing you're going to be doing, you're going to be looking for the best doctors. You're going to be reading up. You're going to be finding out what treatments. You're going to be looking at all the options to help that person be victorious over that cancer. Or if it's any other illness, if you're diabetic, if you're hypertensive, you're not just going to say, oh, just go pray about that, sister. In the name of Jesus, you go pray about that. And I don't want you to think in any way that I am demeaning prayer, because I am a full advocate of prayer. And some days, my brothers and sisters, I can tell you, I feel like it's only the prayer that has get me through. So I'm not saying you do not pray, but I'm saying that we have to exercise more wisdom and ask the Lord to guide us in several different ways as to how we can assist. So Odette, you are correct with that, and I do believe that that is why you may have, I'm just saying that's my personal view, why you may have the rates of suicide increasing in more blacks and teens, because the black community seems more numb to it. They just really don't even acknowledge it. I don't know if y'all know the excuse me, the lady, the actor, we should know her, Tahari Henson or something. Anyway, she's hot right now. A black she acted, I don't watch Empire, but she acted in Empire. She acted in a movie recently, What Men Want or something. But anyway, she is coming out too a lot about mental awareness, because it's something that her son has experienced, and I'm not certain whether she experienced it, but anyway, she's been an advocate for that, because she said when her son was going through, she couldn't find a black psychiatrist. She couldn't find somebody who understood their culture to really talk to her son. So she's now coming out more about, awareness. And so that's what I think, Thank you, Ava, for your encouraging words, and I do have a different outlook. I am very empathetic to those who are going through, because I realize that it's not simple. It's not simple. Ava, right, Ava, right, Taraji Henson, yes. And she has become an advocate because it's her view, and she's correct that, we don't even have a lot of black people who are actually even training to be psychiatrists, because we just totally sweep it under the rug. Now, why can't I get more comments on this? Okay, yeah, I'm not getting, my feed is not coming up loud. Okay, right, it is Tahaji Henson. But Ava also says, but prayer, faith, and action go hand in hand. Exactly. And it puts me in the mind of the scripture that says, faith without works is dead. Okay, you recognize now that you have depression, or that you are dealing with anxiety. Okay, now let's do something about it, because I can tell you, if we don't do anything about it, the end result can be very, very detrimental for those of us that go through it. So when I say do something about it, seeking God was my first thing, because I believe that at the bulk of it, having Him as your foundation is going to greatly help you. Aretha says, Krishna, there are days you're so weak to pray. That is why it is good to have someone you can really talk to. Exactly. And that's one of the things, and I'm glad Aretha led me into that, because that is one of the first things I think you need to do. And you need to be adamant about it. Find someone that you can talk to. It may be a spiritual leader. It may be a friend. It may be a family member. It may be a stranger. It may have to be a psychologist. It may be a psychiatrist. It may be a therapist. But listen, find someone that you can talk to. Because when you're going through a dark period in your life, you need to talk that out. And a lot of times, like Aretha said, and she is correct, you are so weak emotionally, mentally, as I was this morning, that you just can't even pray. Just need a minute. It's not easy, but I believe that through God and through us being proactive, we can get through it. And I couldn't pray, and as much as I read my Bible, I couldn't do it. But Clifford could. And he read to me this morning, and that encouraged me. That gave me a boost to just, continue to take that step further. Take that step further, because it's a process. It's excuse me. It's nothing that you're just going to snap out of. It's nothing that you just get over. And that's why it's important to have those around you that can empathize and that can even, there's some people who are brave enough to admit that they would have been going through and they're able to help you. And that's one of the things that I've had. Here's some water, please. That's one of the things that I've had. So before we're going to take a quick commercial break, right? I don't want to be boo-hooing too much in front of y'all, but you need someone. You cannot travel this road of darkness alone. And that is the first tip, for lack of a better word, I want to encourage you to take. Find someone that you can talk to. Find someone. Find someone. So we will be back in 30 seconds.
So, what's your fancy? Ladies, how about medium and wide with dress pumps, sling bags, flats, wedges, sandals, tennis, nursing shoes, career kicks, and Crocs? Men, check out our dress and casual shoes, tennis, cleats, sandals, work boots, and water shoes. And for children, dress shoes, casual, school shoes, tennis, cleats, sandals, ballet, jazz, christening, and bedroom shoes. So complete your look at Richie's.
Okay, good morning. I'm back. My boohoo session has ended for now, but this is such an emotional topic.